A black man was lynched in Mississippi, and a white man was also lynched in Mississippi on the same day too. This is a little fishy to me. Anyway, y'all, I'm your host, Cool Colas, and we got a lot to talk about. And you are now tuning into a new video on my channel. So let's go ahead and get into it. Before we get into anything related to this video, I just want to give out two disclaimers. And these are two very important things that need to be said before we get into anything else related to this video topic. The first thing is, I have the tinfoil kufi on real strong. I mean, that bad boy is stapled to my head right about now. The tinfoil kufi is on real heavy. The second thing that I want to say is, hearing about the death of a young black man and a white man, no matter what way you swing it, is absolutely tragic and horrible to hear about. And if this is indeed a homicide on either side, and for both people, it is absolutely unacceptable and awful to hear. With that being said, something in the milk just is not clean. And let's kind of go through some of the facts when it comes to the things that we heard about these two deaths. So, for those of you all who do not know, I think his name is Demar. If I said that incorrectly, I apologize. But Demar, also known as Trey Reed, he was a 21-year-old black man, and he was found lynched, or at least hanging from a tree, at the pickleball courts at Delta State University, which is in Cleveland, Mississippi. Now, reports are saying that an autopsy was done and that there was no evidence of foul play. And it's interesting because there's a video out there where this brother is actually giving the report to people about what happened, and he kind of stuttered. He was like, no foul play. Like, he was kind of like he didn't want to say the shit. But my point is that they are saying that there was no foul play, that there was no evidence of any type of broken bones. There was no evidence of any type of bruises, lacerations, or anything like that. But what's also interesting is that there are some people who are online stating that he had some broken bones, and they even say that he probably would not have been able to walk because some of the injuries that were dealt to him were to his feet. So he would not have been able to even stand up to hang himself given what had happened to him. Now, again, this is the report that I hear. This is what I allegedly hear. But my point is that they're stating that this was something that did have foul play, like everybody else was observing this situation. And the family also seems to want answers on what went down. And the family is also stating that this couldn't have been a suicide because a lot of, the reports are alleging that he actually killed himself, and that he committed suicide because of the fact that, there wasn't any foul play and there wasn't any evidence that someone had actually done something to him. The family feels different. They say that he's was a happy, cheery, and joyful young man who really had a lot of hope in life and wanted to do things with his life that would be great and productive. So they are not really believing this. They also are getting information about his death secondhand. So they want some real answers. And that's why, a lot of people have been saying, it should be a thing where they're able to get their own personal autopsy done so they can get real answers to actually what was happening to their family member. So this is kind of what I've kind of heard and researched when it came to this case. Then you have a white man named Zakatis. Now, this is a man who was from Brandon, Mississippi, if I'm not mistaken. And he was found also hanging in Vicksburg, Mississippi, if I'm not mistaken. And this was a 36-year-old white man who also was found dead and also hanging as well. And some of the details they had about him was that he was a homeless man. He had a dog, and then they said some other things about him as well too. But there were less details about him than there were about Trey Reed. But either way, these two things happened in Mississippi, and they happened on September the 15th of 2025. And before we even get into anything else when it comes to this topic, I just want to put the focus completely on Trey for a second and his death. And I want to say something specifically that I think a lot of people are not saying out loud because they fear the backlash that they may get if they say it. And maybe a few people have been saying it online, maybe, but this is something that I think needs to be said. Typically, we as black people, especially foundational black Americans, do not hang ourselves from trees. I'm going to say that again. Typically, we as black people do not hang ourselves from trees. And I'm going to pull a Umar on y'all because I'm going to say that shit one more time. Typically, we as black people do not hang ourselves from trees. Now, y'all can say it was a suicide, and there's a lot of people who are going to go around, they're going to say, oh, think about black men's mental health and how they don't have a lot of spaces where they can speak about this and speak about that. And all that may be true, but the bottom line is that a lot of times people are using that as an excuse and a cop-out to cover up what is often a homicide that is trying to be covered up. So I'm saying this to say that if you look at just the simple facts on its surface, most black people, and I'm sure this young man was no different, understand the history of racism and the racist ways that black people were basically taken out of this world in the deep racist South. And Mississippi is the deep racist South. And one of the places where they typically would do this is in Mississippi, and they would do a lot of lynchings by hanging black people. This is something that everybody pretty much knows, especially in our community. With that being said, something about that death already is fishy if the claim is that this was potentially a suicide. And I don't like it. I really don't like the claim for multiple reasons. Number one, most of the times when people hear a suicide, and I think maybe it might even be debatable, but regardless, it shouldn't be a debate. Most of the time when people hear the word suicide, it becomes a polarizing conversation. Some people are like, oh my God, he must have been so sad to take himself out. But then there's another side of people that are saying it was his own fault. He took his own life. God is going to have judgment on him. He was selfish. So it basically puts the onus back on Trey, where they're basically going around now and making it seem like it's oh, well, he took himself out because obviously he didn't want to get help. He didn't want to do this. He didn't want to do that. So killing yourself is not an option, but he decided to take that. So now it puts the onus back on him versus what really could be a homicide, because this shit is simply not normal. I'm just going to be honest. This is just not normal, and I do not believe it's a suicide. And then number two, making this seem like it's a suicide and an event that is worth talking about when it comes to black men's mental health means that the conversation is being shifted from this idea that racism, overt and covert, are pervasive to this is another showing of how black men have mental health issues because they do not have safe spaces and they have unhealed childhood trauma. So it gets into this pop therapy bullshit ass talk in order to ignore the racism that is ever present and still present in 2025. And to be honest, and I'm not trying to be vulgar or disrespectful, if there are other family members of his that feel different about this, I want to handle this with sensitivity. Even if he did off himself, I don't believe he would hang himself from a damn tree. Maybe he would pop some pills, or maybe he would, right in the neck. But I truly do not believe that this young man would hang himself from a damn tree. I simply don't believe that. Now let's talk about what I think is actually happening here. I think there's what I would call a racist backlash and cover-up agenda that's going on. And I think that Trey Reed was caught in the middle of this agenda taking place. And let me explain what I mean by that. So there are a lot of people who are butthurt because black people are not mourning Charlie Kirk. It's even going beyond the people who are celebrating or are happy or making jokes or silly dances or whatever. But they're legitimately angry at people who are not mourning him and talking about how awful this is. And what I mean by people, I mean black people. So white people literally have sat here and said, this is a case where literally black people have no involvement. I mean, our people didn't take him out. Our people weren't the ones who orchestrated it. our people were not the ones who even were living in the state for the most part where he got taken out at. I mean, this was literally a very white city, a very white state, and a white conservative person who took Charlie Kirk out. And somehow these male supremacists are still involving us in their shit. And here's why I say that this is a big deal and something that we really need to discuss. They involved us in their shit and we had nothing to do with it. And the reason why I know is because right after Charlie Kirk's demise, they started threatening HBCUs. I mean, like what, 6 HBCUs have been threatened? Matter of fact, let's go ahead and look at it. Let's look at it. I want us to like look at this together. 6 HBCUs have been threatened, and it was Alabama State University, Virginia State University, Hampton University, Southern University and A&M, Bethune-Cookman, Clark Atlanta, Spelman, and Morehouse. As a matter of fact, I think that was actually more than 6. That was actually more than 6. That was, in my head, I'm like, I think it was only 6, but it's actually more than that. My point is that all of these places were either harmed or affected some way adjacently, or they have been directly threatened with terroristic threats and potential threats that cause lockdowns, classes to have to be canceled, and all these other things put in order to make sure the students there were safe. And then Trey Reed meets his demise with what I believe to not be a suicide, but more so to be a racist homicide. Now let's go to Corey Zakatis, who I talked about a little bit earlier. When it comes to Corey Zakatis, I believe that he was a casualty of this. And what I mean by that is they knew that they were going to take their anger and frustrations out on black people, even as they always do, even if black people have no involvement in it. So the way that I believe they tried to take out their anger was by committing a racist act against black people, and that was by taking out Trey. And then what they did to cover it up was they took out somebody white in order to basically make it seem like it wasn't a racial motivated issue. It was something that just happens because we live in a sad world where people are so sad and they basically off themselves. So they're trying to take race out of the equation. A lot of people online are going to make the claim that these two things have no bearing on one another, because especially if you look at Mississippi, these two places where these hangings happen, these lynchings happen, were in 2 different cities that were about 3 hours or so away from each other. But the reality is that it's too much of a coincidence that these things happened on the same day. These things were in Mississippi, which is a known racist state where these types of things happen. The incident with the black man was reported first, and this was something that happened after this big uproar about trying to police the language of black people around Charlie Kirk's death, despite the fact that Charlie Kirk went around and he said a bunch of racist things about black people. So now it's a way to punish us because we are not sad, mourning, or even trying to defend Charlie Kirk in his death as if he was some type of hero, when he was nothing but a demon when it came to black society and talking badly about us. Y'all need to understand something, and Dr. Francis Cress Welsing and to a certain extent Neely Fuller Jr. talk about these types of concepts. And maybe even to some extent, if I remember correctly, I think that Neely Fuller Jr. said some variation of what I'm about to say right now. A lot of times when it comes to the white supremacists, it's not a thing of where everybody is going to get an equal piece of the pie in their manipulative and weaselly ass system. Typically, it's a thing where they will do something to someone black so they can subjugate them, not take them out completely. And when there is someone else who is black, or just someone in general who is able to identify that pattern of racism or them trying to take a black person out to subjugate them, they will throw their own underneath the bus in order to justify what is being done, or at least trying to remove the racist element of it out of the equation. So what I'm basically saying is, I believe that Corey was a casualty of them trying not to uncover the idea that they have a white supremacist agenda and how they harm us. Because these events taking place so close to the whole Charlie Kirk thing, and people policing Charlie Kirk's their reaction around Charlie Kirk and all this other stuff, this shit is way too coincidental to just act like, oh, it's all just happened at the same time. I don't know what to say. I mean, like, it all happened so fast. Like, don't nobody want to hear all that shit. We know that this is not a damn coincidence, y'all. Come on. The message here in all this is stay alert, black people, because they're going to do a lot. And this is not the first time that they've done this before. I mean, think about it. When the Carmelo Anthony situation took place, that was a big deal to the white supremacists. A lot of them were raving, mad, and upset about what had happened there. So their backlash at that time was rewarding that Mayo supremacist woman, Shiloh Hendricks, for spouting out a hard ER on a black baby, right? And then giving her a ton of money to the point where she was damn near wealthy. They literally paid her for being racist. That's a part of what I mean by racist backlash. A lot of times they will get so angry because they believe they've taken an L, that their only way to take out their frustrations is to do it on us. Again, be alert. These things aren't just generally happening. And these things aren't happening by coincidence. These are an orchestrated means of the way that they try to harm and unjustly do horrible things to black people and then try to get away with it. All right, y'all. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed what I had to say, and I definitely will have more to come in the future. So make sure you stay tuned. In the meantime, I would love it if you like this video, subscribed, shared this, and also hit the bell icon so you get notifications for whenever I come out with new content on this channel. And then when you are finished watching this video, I would love it if you left me a comment below. That way I can get back to whatever it is that you had to say about the topic for today. Other than that, I will talk to y'all later. Peace out, y'all.